good? Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. I'm your host, Charles, AKA the Handsome Homebuyer, AKA El Julio Maravilloso, AKA...
Captain Permit.
Bro,
Switch it up on me.
You're the fucking man. I thought I was going to switch it up on you and I was going to get you, but nobody gets Maddie. Ever. Maddie and our guest also, I've learned today that I need to up my moisturizer game. Because everyone has soft, supple hands in this room. Except mine aren't like super not supple, but regardless. You know whose hands are also supple? Every part of his body is supple? Maddie? Captain Permit. 516-513-8838. If you need plans, if you need permits, Captain Permit floor is on fire out there right now. It looks like the Wolf of Wall Street. Guys are yelling, screaming, papers are flying, things are getting drawn, things are getting measured. It's beautiful. I love every second of it. Love all of you for support. Thank you very much. 516-513-8838. And obviously, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, has been dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, human waste floating past the basement steps, you know I'm your guy. You know I want to buy it. If you have development sites, land, notes, anything real estate related, old gas stations, whatever it is, if you can drive by it, stand on it, build something on it, plant a flag on it, and it makes money, you want to call me. I'm easy. I'm low maintenance. I'm a good time. I want to buy it. 516-777-SOLD. I got to tell you, man, last couple weeks have just been a whirlwind of excitement. We've got a ton of unbelievable exposure, a lot of great things happening with our new developments, a lot of bigger developments and things coming in. Very, very cool. Was on the cover of Newsday's business section on Sunday with ads running on Friday and Saturday. Long Island business news for our development in Oceanside at the Oceanside Jewish Center, which is coming along amazing. Our medical facility is coming along. We got a bunch of other big opportunities in the pipeline that I can't wait to share with you guys. One of which I received last week. It's a little bit early, but we're going to announce it anyway because I want to start bringing like-minded people together to help in the process. So I received the honor last week of being nominated to run for Man of the Year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I'm very excited about it. I don't think there's anybody who's listening to this, myself included, who has not been touched by cancer in one way, shape, or form. My grandfather died of cancer, my grandmother died of cancer, and my mother has had cancer twice, one very rare form of cancer in which she had experimental surgery 15 years ago and survived and is 100% good as new, knock on wood, because she is my everything. So for her and for them, and to continue the cure and continue the process, I am going to be running for Man of the Year. What I'm looking to do at this point is assemble a group of like-minded individuals that have been touched by cancer in some way, that want to give back, that want to help fight regardless of if you've been touched by it or not, although most people have. DM me, reach out to me, call me, get in touch with me. Let's put a battle plan together. Let's get the best group possible, and let's go out there and make a difference. Speaking of making a difference, our guest has made a traumatic difference in my life, and I'm sure the life of many others. He is a financial wizard. When you get to a certain level, when you're in the flips and flip market, you need someone like him. You need to reach out to somebody like him, and you'll get his information, and hopefully he can help you. But especially when you get to the level of development, you definitely need somebody like him. He has an extensive financial resume. Let's go down the resume here. After college, he worked at Markham, an accounting firm where he honed his skills, auditing private equity funds, pension funds, etc. Then he took all that knowledge and went from the good side to the bad side, where he was an analyst for RXR, now a CFO for Think Shop Advisors, which is a long-short equity fund, and he is the recent CFO of the Kolka Group. So he was in an accounting firm, learned all the inside tricks, and then came out into the private sector to use those superpowers to help people like myself. He has also played a pivotal role in my development. When I underwrite a lot of these deals, he has built me financial models that make my life unbelievably easy. All I do is go in, plug the numbers in. This thing looks like German, Greek, another language, but at the end of the day, I press a button and it spits out the number, and either the deal works or it doesn't, and it takes all the guesswork out. So after this podcast, you're going to get his information. If you're a fix and flip investor, a developer, anybody who needs financial modeling done or a brilliant financial mind to consult with, You got to call the man, the myth, Joe Hoenigmann.
Thank you. It's quite an introduction.
You like that?
Yeah.
Did you ever get an introduction like that before?
No, I don't think I've actually ever gotten an introduction before.
Nice.
That might be my first.
And always, as I say on every podcast, my plan is to underpromise and overdeliver. So without further ado, let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. So you, as most of our podcast guests, and I hope I don't fuck this up, are a local Long Island guy?
Yes, I am.
Born and raised in Long Island?
Yep, East Northport.
Okay.
Nice. I went to Comac.
All right. Village of Northport?
No, so East Northport, town of Huntington.
Okay.
But that's right by Village of Northport. I'm like 10 minutes away, not even.
College on Long Island?
No. Well, yes. I went to Sacred Heart first. I got a bachelor's in finance.
Okay.
And then when I was 28, I went back to LIU, CW Post. And got
home of the Great Lawn.
Yeah. So, a pioneer at Sacred Heart and a pioneer at CW Post. Both like same mascot or whatever. It was kind of ironic. But yeah, so I technically did go to school on the island, but my first trip was in Sacred Heart in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Dynamite head of hair.
Oh, thank you.
Hairline that hasn't moved ever, I might add. Did you always know that you wanted to be in finance? Because it sounds like you always kind of had that financial mind, and that's where you were looking to go and be involved.
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I feel like most people don't know what they want to do, but I always had like an interest in the stock market, and one of my first interests was actually like in Excel, and they kind of go hand in hand. And being in the business world, the people you look up to, obviously people who make a lot of money, who are successful, and it's kind of the field you want to get into. I feel like most people are naive when they're younger. They think they want to do something and they don't truly know what's involved. And then that's kind of what happened to me is, you know, as you move along in your career, you see what really interests you and what you really like, and what are the things that you thought were true or not so much true. And then, you know, there's other things in life that may not sound so good or glorious that actually interest you more. So finance for me has always been a passion because I've liked stocks and been involved in that, and I like business. But if I would tell you, like, I knew in high school what I wanted to do, I had no idea.
So I think this is a point that I want to reinforce before we get all into this for the listeners out there, which is you don't have to know everything in life. You just have to assemble the best possible team. I literally, up until like 2 months ago, do not know how to add something on Excel. Right? I can dream up a deal, but at the end of the day, Joe is the guy that sits there and masterminds this crazy equation that tells me if the numbers work or don't. So like, I don't want you to think that if you're not an Excel wizard, you can't do development. You just need to call Joe or find somebody like Joe, although there are few and far between. Before we go into like your insane history of what you're doing, and what you've done, because you work for some pretty high-profile companies, especially on Long Island, and what you're doing now is pretty awesome. I just want to kind of go into finance and explaining different terms and stuff for people that are out there that are interested in it, because you get to work and experience very cool shit. Like the things that people kind of like dream about or see but never think is attainable. Like you get involved in hedge funds, private equity funds, using giant tens of hundreds of millions of dollars, and then orchestrating this equation to build huge real estate projects, invest in equities. Like the sky is the limit. Yep. Can you kind of, I guess, tell people right now what the difference between a hedge fund is, a private equity fund, and then a long-short equity fund, which is what you're involved in right now?
All right, well, just to start off, a long-short equity fund is just a strategy of hedge funds. So to make it simple, hedge funds, for the most part, is just a pool of money of investors with a strategy that's invested in. It's more so a liquid type investment, whereas private equity is more non-liquid, and usually there's a minimum term that goes along with it, like 5-7 years. So if you were going to be investing in a private equity firm, you're in it for the long haul, and you're not getting your money out until the deals start closing, whether you're buying a company, improving upon it, and then selling it. Mm-hmm. It's not like if you want to get out and you want your money back, you're getting it back. With the hedge fund, especially if it's a liquid one where they're investing in stocks and bonds or whatever, usually you can withdraw your money on a monthly basis. But to really differentiate the both, hedge funds are more of your structured products that you would know, like equities. Sometimes they do with things that are a little bit out of the norm, but for the most part, they're more liquid investments, easier to value, and private equity deals are more of like, buying a business or going into something of that nature where you do lending or something that completely different, and again, your money's usually locked up for a longer period of time.
Okay, so just to kind of to recap for people, so when he says equities, he's talking about stocks. When he's talking about
options.
liquidity, it's or options. And when he's talking about liquidity, it's easily converted to cash, and you can easily take your money out. Explain to people what options are exactly and how that works in the stock market and hedge fund world.
Okay, so I mean, options, they've been around for a long time, and I'd say, especially with the internet and how people could trade by themselves now, where they don't need to necessarily go through a broker. There's TD Ameritrade, there's Schwab. Everyone, for the most part, now can go on, get an account, and trade. There's been a lot more options that have become available, and basically the way an option works is this is like one of those words that people don't necessarily like to hear, but it's a derivative. And all a derivative is, it gets its value derived from an underlying asset. So if you want to buy an Apple option, the option value is derived from the asset itself, which is the Apple stock. And it gives you leverage. So like one option contract allows you to control 100 shares of, let's say, Apple. And so with that, it's if you buy an option, again, there's a lot of different terminology with this, but if you buy an out of the money option where you think the stock's going to go up, you're basically kind of putting a bet on that's going to happen. And if it does go up, from that one small investment in that option, you can make a lot of money. However, if it doesn't reach your price, the money you pay to have that option, you just lose. So sometimes it could be like gambling. But there's also many other things you could do with options, like hedging. You could actually sell options and make money doing that. So it does become like a very complicated thing, but for the basic understanding, it allows you to control a lot of shares of stock with a very minimal investment. It allows you to leverage yourself.
So just real basic so people get it. If I want to buy if I really like Apple, what's Apple trading at right now? Like $600, something like $200?
Yeah, it's getting closer. I mean, it got closer to the 1,000 range, and then it did. I think it was a 6-for-1 split or 7-for-1 split. So
let's assume it's done. Let's say that Apple's trading at $100, and I would love to buy one share of Apple because I think it's going to go to $120. But I don't have $100 to pay for the stock. But I feel it in my blood that it's going to go to 20. How does the option work, and what do I do?
All right, so basically, if you wanted to buy, it would be more like you wanted to buy 100 shares of Apple, but you didn't have the money to do so because it would cost way too much money to outlay. You would buy one option contract of Apple, which would essentially allow you to control 100 shares. So just using arbitrary numbers here.
Yeah.
You could buy, let's say Apple is trading at $100 today and you thought it was going to go up to $110. You could buy what's known as a call option, where if it, and also there's a time frame associated with it. So if you think it's going to hit $110 within, let's say, the next 3 months, you would buy a stock option for Apple. That's a call price or a strike price of $110. 3 months out, and if it hits or goes above that 110 price, you get issued those shares, and you paid a small premium for that option, which may be you may have paid like, I don't know, something like that, like maybe $200 for that option, but then you would be getting the stock at the $100 price when it's worth $100. So the profit you make is intrinsic. In that sense, where the value is already there. But again, if it doesn't hit that 110 price,
you lose what you put up.
You lose your premium.
So basically, you're getting the option or the opportunity to purchase a stock within a certain period of time at a predetermined price. And if it hits or exceeds that, you exercise that, and you could hold it or sell it, and you can make the spread, and you pay a small premium for that. So you pay $1, $1.50, 50 cents, $2.50, whatever it is for that option. If it doesn't hit, you lose that money. You roll the dice. If it goes up, you didn't have to lay out all that money to own the stock. You could just exercise the buy and sell or the buy and hold.
Exactly, and you can if you did want to fully exercise the option at that point. If you had the money, you could actually get the shares for the strike price, which would be 110. And at that point, if the stock was at 120, you're buying it at 110. It's now at 120. Then you could also sell those shares whenever you want, but your cost basis would only be 110.
Exactly. So the hedge funds are primarily, like, they do some out of the box stuff, but primarily they invest in stocks, bonds, options, puts, calls, etc. Is that an accurate statement? Sort of.
Again, yes and no. Because
more liquid stuff.
But again, there are other non-liquid events. But for the most part, with hedge funds, you can get in and out of them, whereas a private equity fund is more of like a structured deal. Like, you're getting in for like a 5 to 7 year term, and usually they have usually it'll be like a 5-year term, and they'll say, okay, this is what we plan to do. We plan to buy these types of companies, like maybe 3 companies, and we're going to turn around, and then we're going to go sell them. And we expect to do that within a 5-year period. And then they will have a clause usually in the private placement memorandum saying, we have the option to extend the 5-year period twice for 1 or 2 years each, because sometimes it doesn't work out in that range.
Yeah, because of the time frame.
Exactly. But your money's locked up. You can't get it back until it's done.
So basically, someone's investing in a private equity fund like the Handsome private equity fund, which will be in existence at some point in the next few years, and we go out and we say, you know what? I'm like, Joe, do an analysis of Coke, because I think we could buy Coke now and sell it in 5 years and make a lot of money. And that's basically what happens. You buy huge businesses, doesn't matter what it is, Walmart, Coke, Nabisco, you name it, whoever's for sale. And if you feel that you can add value, or just you're buying it at the right time in the economic cycle, if it's down low and you feel like things are going to increase, you sell it and you can make a lot of money.
Well, so usually you're not buying like the Coca-Colas. Usually you're buying.
Let me dream here, Joe.
I just say usually
dream with me here.
Usually you're buying the assets that are in trouble that that you could fix. You have an opportunity to fix. That's how you're gaining the value. If you're buying Coke, it's probably a very well-run company. If Coke ended up becoming one of those companies that started going on a bad downfall and needed help, you may be a private equity company that comes in there and buys them on the cheap to bail them out, and then fix the whole company structure, raise the value, and then sell it. That's how they make their money.
If we're going to be working together, I need you to be 90% optimism and 10% realism.
All right, we're buying Coca-Cola.
Something happened with the secret sauce. There was an issue. We bailed Coke out. We're going to sell it at the height of the market. That's in my dream.
All right, listen, I'm in on that.
I'm sticking to it.
I'm in on it.
First of all, what kind of people, like, where do private equity and hedge funds get their money? What kind of people invest in those things? How does that work?
It's all over the place, but to invest in a private equity or a hedge fund, again, these are all private placements, so you need to be what's known as an accredited investor, which is making over $200,000 a year or having $1 million in net worth, not including your house. So it's not available to the public like you could just go buy a stock. Not only is it not available to the public, hedge funds, private equity firms, they can't solicit their fund. They can't go on the radio and say, this is my hedge fund, this is what we do, come invest in it. They're not allowed to do that. So the money is usually coming from more wealthy people or institutions. And there are individuals who do invest, but they're not going to give as much money as an institution will. But that's generally where the money comes from, and a lot of it now is overseas money because they just want to get their money in the U.S. in some sort, because it's right now, especially a better investment than most other places in the world.
And so everybody understands, how do the owners of private equity and hedge funds get paid? Like, what are the structures? How do they make money?
So they charge what's known as a management fee, which is based on the assets or the amount of commitments they have in the fund. So if you have, let's say, a $100 million fund and you have a 2% management fee, you'd be making $2 million a year just to manage those assets for the year. And then they usually get back-end compensation, which is known as an incentive or carried interest. where they get a portion of the profits, which could be anywhere from 5% up to 30% of what their investors' profits are. And the reason why investors go along with this is because you're not getting your typical return. You're getting excessive returns in opportunities that you would otherwise not be able to get your hands onto. So if someone's telling you that they're projecting to make 30% a year for the next 3 or 4 years,
well, for selling Coke at the height of the market,
exactly, which that also kind of sounds pretty, bad, like we're going into
not the drugs, the soft drink.
In that sense, it's a rare opportunity that not many people could get, and that's how the rich get richer. They use their capital, they deploy their capital, and they do so to make an investment and generate more wealth.
Yeah, and typically, like the people that run the fund, it's not their money. They're playing with other people's money essentially.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them will have their own money invested, and a lot of investors like to see that too because it shows confidence in what you're doing, and if you have skin in the game, they know if the fund tanks that a lot of if you have all your personal wealth tied up in your hedge fund or private equity firm, you as an investor would probably feel a lot more confident that I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that this thing goes right. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm losing my personal fortune as well.
So before you were talking about the swings in return, anywhere from 5 to 30%, what typically dictates what a private equity fund or a hedge fund can charge as a fee?
Is really the market. I mean, after like the stock market crash or the recession in 2008, 2009, and people lost a lot of money. Hedge funds kind of got a bad name. Before that, people were paying. They didn't care about the fees because everyone was making so much money, and when you're making so much money, people don't look at those things. Then after a traumatic event happens, they start saying, "No, these people are greedy," and look at the fees. It becomes a thing, and after that happened, fees started going down. So it really all depends on your track record, your pedigree, the type of fund you have. But some funds won't charge a management fee; they'll just charge an incentive fee to get people in the fund.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's like anything else in marketing. You whichever way is going to be able to attract more investors, especially for what you're trying to do, is the way it goes. If you're a more experienced investor and people want to get in your fund, you can charge a 2% management fee because people are going to pay because they want to put their money with you. So it's really up to the general partner or the investment manager of what they want to charge. But again, people are now much more aware of the fees. And there are a lot of hedge funds, a lot of private equity firms out there, and they know they could get lower fees somewhere else. And if it's between choosing two similar funds where they feel confident in both, they may go with the one with the lower fees because there's going to be some savings there.
But these things, this is a service. It's not like buying a stapler, so everyone's not equal. Meaning, like the better ones that you have, like the Blackstones of the world, the Starwoods of the world, etc. Those guys seem to be able to command higher fees because they are who they are.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. I mean, obviously they have humongous teams, tremendous supporting casts. So they, like that management fee is used to pay the salaries of all their analysts and investors and whatnot. And on top of that, their bonuses are generated from the profits they produce. So that's what motivates them to keep going. But yeah, I mean, they have tremendous resources, and when you have a track record like that, if you want to get into one of those funds, you will pay those fees because you're going to get a good return, or you assume you're going to get a good return.
The very, very cool thing is, I recently read the book King of Capital, which is the story of Blackstone and how it was started. So granted, it was in the 80s, it was a different time, but I don't think anything's impossible at any time. But it was two guys that didn't really have the experience. They had worked in big bank before, but they went out and they just canvassed for 2 years. I believe it was a year, and they tried to raise $1 billion fund. They raised $800,000, I believe, closed it. The economy took a shit. Then they went in, started buying things up, and just rode that to the top to be. I think Blackstone is the most successful private equity fund right now. Most assets under management right now. So like it just goes to show everything kind of starts out with an idea with essentially nothing. You had two guys that had one secretary, no office furniture, and they ran around for an entire year asking people for money, and everybody told them, no, slammed doors in their face, and then today they're the biggest private equity fund around.
Yeah, and that's like no different than how Amazon started. Jeff Bezos was packing books on a plastic table in his garage, shipping out each shipment by himself until it became this huge logistical machine now that 50% of the U.S. buys their goods from, basically, if you think about how crazy that is.
Oh, just starts with a dream, right, Maddie?
Always.
I want to backtrack for a second through your experience and how your previous life experience and work experience has kind of prepared you for what you're doing now, and then the greatness that you see going forward. Because I know that you have huge dreams about being a part of a fund like that, whether it be a hedge fund or a private equity fund, and just riding that thing off into the sunset.
Yep.
So, please delve in. I'm curious to know how working at Markham and kind of auditing these companies and looking at the financials, like the real deal financials, and seeing how they're run and the money that they make or the money that they lose impacted you onto going into RXR, which is, just a behemoth of a real estate company locally on Long Island. They're amazing. I grew up with members of the family playing hockey with them, and they're very, very cool people and very smart. And then now you assuming the CFO role at a hedge fund and at a growing real estate conglomerate.
Yep. So right out of college, I didn't really know what to do. My brother was in the mortgage industry, and he was making a lot of money. So I kind of looked up to him, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get involved with that. And I started selling mortgages, and to be honest, never really loved sales, but I will say doing sales for 2 years approximately was one of the best experiences I ever had, because you really understand what it takes to earn a living, not just getting a paycheck. So I did that for about 2 years. That was right when the market crashed. At which time I went to work for a mortgage bank, and I switched over to the finance side where I was trading mortgages, and that job I actually loved, but unfortunately we were owned by a Belgian bank that wanted nothing to do with U.S. Mortgage companies. They ended up wanting to close down the company, even though we were extremely profitable. And at that point, I was like, I just had my dream job, thought I was going to be there for forever and love what I was doing. And I went from that to basically going out to looking for a job when there was a recession hitting. So I was like, what am I going to do now? It's very competitive out there. I didn't have a tremendous amount of experience in finance, but that's where I wanted to be. Father had his own accounting firm. He's like, why don't you go back to school, get your accounting degree, and take over the firm? So I was like, it's a good starting point. I just wanted to get moving. Went back to school, got my accounting degree, got my CPA. I wanted to work for a big firm first to get experience rather than just going to my father's firm, which was smaller.
Very smart.
And just take over. So I did that, and because I had financial experience on my resume, Markham actually recruited me to work in their alternative investment group division, which audits the hedge funds and private equity funds. So it was kind of like a natural fit, and that's basically how my accounting career got started. And I actually helped launch the hedge fund I work for now, Think Shop Advisors. Again, that's where I met them. But yeah, I got to see a lot of cool things auditing there, especially when we would audit hedge fund of funds, which are basically hedge funds that invest in many other hedge funds. So I got to see the biggest of the biggest hedge funds out there and what they do. And it's a lot of cool stuff, like all those things you hear about, like interest rate swaps, the different types of derivatives. You really see all of that, and not only you have to understand it financially, but you have to understand it the accounting portion of it too. So that was just an unbelievable experience in itself.
I'm curious to know, without naming any names, what are some of the biggest losses you saw and some of the biggest profits that you saw, like percentage-wise?
Well, biggest losses, since I was since I was auditing the hedge funds right after I started in 2012, that was there was still a lot of aftermath of Bernie Madoff. A lot of those hedge fund funds were invested in a lot of Bernie Madoff funds, and then then at the same time there's also a lot of other Ponzi schemes that were revealed at that point in time. So there were funds that basically were in liquidation because they couldn't get their money out of Madoff's funds and whatnot.
Wow.
So those funds.
So it's like a domino effect, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, those funds, not only were they losing a lot of money, but the funds had to do what's called a lockup, where they tell all their investors, okay, you can no longer try and withdraw your money from the fund because of what's going on. We have liquidity issues, and basically they would try to get whatever money they can from the investments they had, and then when they got money in, they would just distribute out to the investors, but they were taking massive losses, and it was taking a long time to get their money back. So that was probably the worst I've ever seen. Haven't really seen too many hedge funds that were operating in a normal environment where they would have like a 30% down year or a 40% down year. I mean, if that kind of happened to you, I don't think your fund's gonna really last that long. But in terms of the best, high returns of 50, 60, 70%.
Annualized?
Yeah, well, for the year.
Wow.
And, it's one thing to have a year like that, but it's more about the consistency, and that's more what investors care about, is like, can you repeat what you're doing? Anyone could have a major year. And, before the whole Bernie Madoff thing, a lot of hedge fund investors, that's what they would do, is they would put big bets on, because again, you're playing with other people's money. I actually read one book about a hedge fund investor. What they would do is they would put like a huge bet on. They would get on a private plane and they would go fly overseas, and like as the trade was going on, they'd be flying, and if it went well, they start partying. If not, they basically knew that they were leaving their job and basically going to be taking a year or so off because
what?
Yeah. Listen, people got greedy. And if you have the ability to make a lot of money very quickly and you're not risking your money, it's what some people would do. And that's a lot of things that led to the financial crisis that we had. I mean, look at the mortgages. That it all got exacerbated through the financial system with basically bundling these things up, selling them, and then derivatives were being sold off of them. And like I said, it was just a major domino effect. People didn't realize the amount of exposure that was actually involved with the whole mortgage industry and how far reaching it was, because it wasn't just the mortgage banks. It was, Bank of America's, the Merrill Lynch's, who were buying those securitizations. And then you had companies like AIG who were insuring them, but it wasn't real insurance. So it was just, it was something that it couldn't be protected. It was too big.
I'm curious to know, you may or may not know the answer. I'm curious to know this. Do you know what the average life expectancy of a fund, of a hedge fund is before they go out? Like, what's the success rate on these things, that kind of stuff?
I think, when I first started working in the hedge fund industry, I kind of looked at this stuff. I think probably something like 80% of hedge funds fail within the first 2 years.
It's like the restaurant business.
Yeah. If you don't get off the ground and you don't get running and you can't run your operation, you can't pay your people, it's not easy. You know what I mean? Like I said, just like a restaurant. If you have a restaurant, you're running it for 2 years and it's not profitable, what are you going to do? You're going to keep running it and be stubborn. At some point, you got to say this is working or this is not working.
How much do you think timing has to do with all this kind of stuff, or investment strategy, or both? Do you think it's more one or the other? Like, when private equity funds come in and buy companies, and are they really adding value and repositioning them and putting management in there, or are they just riding the wave of, an economic downturn to a robust economy, or what?
So it's different, I'd say, for hedge funds and private equity funds. I mean, obviously, when you have the black swan events, like a market crash that no one either predicted would be that bad, sometimes you could get caught with your pants down, where no matter what you're invested in is just going to go down and there's nothing you can do about it. But for the most part, with that aside of having a big dramatic event like that, most funds are going to do well and perform because they know what they're doing. Like they've seen this before, and like what a private equity fund will do is they go into a place, they see why they're failing, they see where they can add value, they have experts that say, okay, this is what needs to be done, and they go in there, they run lean and mean, and they have the best of the best running their operations. They turn it around. They work their asses off for 1 or 2 years to get that done, and then they essentially flip the company. It's almost like flipping a house, like what you do. A normal house gets built in a certain amount of time. When you go into a flip a house, your idea is, I want to go in there, I'm going to bring the best guys I know to do this as efficiently and as cheaply as possible, make it look as nice and good as possible, and then sell it as soon as possible and make a profit on it. And you've done things like you have your own permitting department, so you find efficiencies. So someone like you could go in there and flip a house faster and cheaper and better than someone off the street who just wanted to do it, because you know all the ins and outs and you have all these efficiencies in doing it, and you also have the experience in doing it.
No, very true.
And just like you said, normally if you're going to flip a house, you know if you're going to make money on it or not. But obviously there are things that could happen where if the mortgage market fell out tomorrow, then obviously the house you're flipping, who are you going to sell it to if the market crashes and no one wants to buy anything or values go down? Then that's nothing that you really could have done about that. You couldn't forecast that.
Yeah, and that's why, that's where contingencies come into play. Like, you have to, and one thing that I got from that book on Blackstone, which is very interesting, is that, like, we have a base case scenario, we have a best case, we have a worst case, and then we have, like, a catastrophic case of 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
Like, and you really look at the risk range and say, like, how solid is this? If the world comes to an end, am I losing money? How much money am I losing? How quickly can I get out of this? Like, what's my exposure? And that's what I think a lot of investors have to do that they don't. They just look at it. They want to look at it through rose-colored glasses because it's emotional for them, which it shouldn't be.
Yep.
And then they get into trouble.
And that's 100% right. I don't want to put every investor in the same boat, but your normal investor who is not knowledgeable or in depth about finance, they care more so about the returns, where a sophisticated investor, maybe someone who works for an institution, they not only care about the returns, but they care about how you're getting those returns, how much risk you're taking in those returns, and they will look at those things. Where a normal investor might go up to you and say, oh, well, let me see your projections. What do you think we're going to make? You think we're going to make 30% on this deal? That's great. Whereas a sophisticated investor might say, okay, 30%, as you said, is what you're projecting to make, but what happens if this happens and this happens? Where are we going to stand? How much money do you think I'll lose at that point? They assess their risk and say, okay, this is worth it or this is not worth it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what do you think of the current state of the market and everything that's going on? Economy, everything.
It's a weird period because we're like 9 years into what I call a melt up, where with the quantitative easing that's been going on over the years, the markets have just been slowly and steadily going up.
Tell people what quantitative easing is.
That's basically the government coming in and lowering rates, putting money into the economy to help economic activity, to basically get out of what we were in the recession. That's why now unemployment's at all-time lows and things of that nature. But after a while, rates are so low right now. We already have so much, national debt. After a while, there's only so many levers you could pull to spur the economy, and that's kind of where we're at now. Is that we're kind of like stalling, where we've been in a slow, steady uptrend for the past 9 years, and now there's fears of recession coming out because the market is cyclical, and you have a political climate right now with trade wars and whatnot that people are starting to get a little unsettled. So the way I see it is, I think over the next 2 years there's going to be turbulence in the market because of the political climate, the trade wars and whatnot, and just for the fact that the market is cyclical. But I don't think we're going to be in a recession like we were years ago, and I think from there it could go either way. if the market stabilizes itself, I think there's plenty of room to grow. But if shit, the proverbial shit hits the fan, bad things can happen. Where if the trade wars keep going on, like we're in construction. If construction starts going away, that's like 50% of the GDP of our nation is based on real estate. So, even like it's such a trickle down effect. And sometimes it takes a while for it to happen, but that's why it's very hard to tell. But one of the best ways that I think you could measure the market is actually through real estate. If you see good movement in the real estate market, if people are buying, then I think overall especially the U.S. economy is going to be flourishing because there's just so much attached to it. There's so much money to be made from everyone if there's a good real estate market.
And the problem that I see, and real estate is obviously so like it could be down to like a micro market. It could be like an entire market be going to shit, but 2 blocks are like going through the roof. So with that said, New York City is obviously not in good shape. The new development is down like 40%, I think more at this point. The median price of a unit, I heard this morning, just fell below $1 million for the first time in like forever. So they're calling it like bargain shopping now.
Yeah, and here's the thing with New York City. Again, every market's going to be cyclical.
Yeah.
But New York City it's almost a place for people to.
It's a safety deposit box.
Yes, for the world now because of globalization. Because the values are always going to be there. I mean, they may drop a little bit, but the United States is the most powerful nation, most powerful currency, and if you could get your money locked up into something like a building, over the long term, 15, 20 years, that's going to go up tremendously because you can't put more space in New York City. Yeah. So even now, if the prices are going down a little bit and whatnot, that wouldn't be my concern. I mean, maybe if you're trying to buy a building and rent it out, see if it makes sense financially. But if you had a lot of money where you could just buy a building in New York City today because you wanted to preserve assets for the future, I would say that's the best place you could put it.
Yeah, I meant more from a standpoint of like, if you're not doing development because there's too much supply, then contractors aren't working and suppliers aren't bringing supplies, and it's just like it's a trickle down effect. Again, like you said, to your point, I don't think people realize how much of the GDP is dependent on real estate in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's 50%. Like that's a pretty accurate figure.
Yeah.
From people who buy and sell real estate to construction to furniture manufacturers. I mean, think about it. Someone buys a house, they gotta put furniture on the house. How much stuff are they buying to fill that house with?
Yeah.
Then you get an alarm system. There's just so many things attached to real estate. It's unbelievable.
And the thing that worries me is like anything on the higher end, anything in Nassau above 550 is sitting. Anything in Suffolk above like 450 is really sitting.
Yep.
People are a lot more tax sensitive because of the new tax laws in New York. Mm-hmm. New York is a unique animal in that respect. But things are definitely changing. But with great change comes great opportunity. Speaking of opportunity, I want you to kind of talk about the opportunity you had at RXR, what you did for them, and how pivotal that was, because that must have been fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of lucked out with that role.
How'd you get that job?
So, when I was working at Markham, when I helped launch the hedge fund, I basically had a non-compete there, so I couldn't go straight to the hedge fund.
Okay.
But I knew that public accounting wasn't like my passion. It wasn't what I wanted to do for a living. But it was one of the greatest learning experiences I've ever had in terms of thinking out of the box and seeing so many different things. So RXR for me was an opportunity that I had to kind of bridge a gap between accounting and the hedge fund. And my thought was, if the hedge fund doesn't take off, I'm going to be with a great company. And it was actually a better experience than I ever could imagine I had. I was working under a senior vice president and the CFO at RXR, Mike Maturo, and I got to see basically how their whole operation worked, basically how they made all their money, how they became so successful, and they truly are one of the most impressive companies I've ever seen. So again, it was a great learning experience. I did a lot of modeling there for for funds and for the actual individual properties, as well as doing the corporate budget for the whole entire company. So I got to see a lot there. I was lucky in that sense. I got, micro views and very high level macro views. So, RXR was a wonderful place for me to go. And Scott Reckler, who's the CEO, I think he's probably one of the most impressive, influential people on the island. And I know he also cares about, the community, building things. Like I said, would never have a bad thing to say about them. I'm grateful for the experience that I had there, and I learned so much from being there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I'm grateful that you did, because you've helped me leaps and bounds with what you've learned there, and what's going to go on in the future. Speaking of the future, what's Joe Hoenigmann's future?
Well, right now, I think I kind of figured out that I don't want to work for someone. I want to work with like-minded people, entrepreneurial people who, want to go out and change things. I met you. I met Devin. We're younger people who are entrepreneurial. I feel like there's not many of us around anymore. Everyone kind of just goes to work, does their 9 to 5 or whatever. Where I just that doesn't excite me. It's like I want to do my own things. I want to create my own things, and I want to be surrounded with people with the same energy and the same type of desires. It's just I enjoy what I do. Like I love working. It's exciting for me, and I feel like most people don't have that. Where if you're going to a job and you're doing a specific task day after day, it can get monotonous. But like what you do, I'm sure you love what you do. You love, I know from you telling me going to school, like you love being at NYU and learning about real estate, and to have that passion and to be able to do that is unbelievable. And that's basically what I want to do. So running the hedge fund, gotten that to a place where it's efficient and I could kind of take a step back and do other projects. I met Devin, actually did some modeling for him. We were working on a project out in Montauk, and then he told me he needed help with his accounting department, and that's how it kind of took off. And Devin's an amazing person. Another guy, he's young, he's like 30, but he took over a very storied company, and I just love his vision and his passion for what he wants to do, and we kind of just had a natural fit. And then he introduced me to you, and just doing a model for you, I was like, I see your passion in what you do, and I think it's great. So I just love being involved with people who are trying to do things, especially on Long Island, because I feel like it's going to be tough for people to be living here who are just working those 9 to 5 jobs. The money isn't there, and not everyone's like us who wants to be entrepreneurs and own their own business and go out and do that. But I feel like, again, since construction and real estate has so much to do with the market, I feel like if there are more people like you and Devin who are starting to develop these brands and become a presence on the island, that like single-handedly you guys can have a major impact on the workforce and also the living situation here on the island. And to me that's important, because I love living on the island. Like I don't want to live in the city. I've had the opportunity to, but I love living on the island. I want to stay here, and I obviously want future generations to stay here to make this a lively and fun place. I don't want it to just be all old people. I want it to be young, vibrant, and thriving.
No, one of the most probably gratifying moments of my career was my foreman walked in maybe like a year ago or so, and he said to me, he goes, you support hundreds and hundreds of people, probably like 500 or 600 people. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you have X number of employees, and then you hire this subcontractor and that subcontractor, and they have employees, and then they go here and they go there. He's like, when you think about it, this business helps sustain the lives of 3, 4, 5, 600 different people. And that to me was the most gratifying moment so far of my career, knowing that you can build something alongside with the help of other people and then have such an impact on the community and on a group of people. It's very cool.
Absolutely. And that's what I was talking about, how far reaching it is. And I don't think some people understand that. Some people may think that you might be greedy, that he's running a real estate fund or he wants to do all these developments, and people just whether it's jealousy or they just don't understand, they may not like people like you or I or Devin, and again, they think, oh, they just want to make money. But, especially, I can't speak for everyone. I know people like you and Devin, your heart and your minds are in different places where not only do you love what you do and you want to make money, but it's also more about the project and doing the right thing. And not only do you help other people by, hiring the contractors and stuff, but, like, for example, on the island, we were just talking about how, price range is anything above $450. It's hard for a young couple to afford anything higher than on the island. If we could put together more affordable housing options or build a community that's like designed for millennials that they more prefer maybe smaller spaces that are more efficient spaces with walkable communities and whatnot. If we could start doing things like that, not only are we helping contractors and family make money, but then you're also helping the younger generations have more affordable places to live. And that's why I was saying people like you and Devin could really have a major impact on this island, because I feel like you two especially are going to be people who are going to have a major impact over the next 30 years, especially on Long Island in the development and the real estate community.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. You're the fucking man. How do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you, if they want your opinion, they need your modeling skills, social media, etc., whatever you want to put out there for the world?
I guess the best way would just be to email me, which would be, it's my first initial last name. I just use an Outlook account. So
you're going to have to spell Hoenigmann for people.
I will. It's JHOENIGMANN @outlook.com. I'll also give my phone number out there if anyone wants to just shoot me a text. I mean, I don't use social media too much.
Ladies, this call could be the best call of your life.
So 631-252-4377.
Perfect. And obviously, if you need plans, if you need permits, you got to call the captain, 516-513-8838. You have a house that smells like cat pee, dated from the 1960s, commercial property, whatever it is, I want to buy it. 51677 sold. And again, Future Man of the Year 2020. If you want to get involved, if you're a like-minded individual, please get at me. Obviously, you know how to get a hold of me, 516-457-2225. Handsome _homebuyer. Charles Weinraub, Captain _permit. Call me, DM me, text me. Let's get this done. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Orgulloso estoy de mi herencia judía. Benjamín Lev Ben Shlomo, cuando me llaman a la torre, así me llamo yo.